The faint red glow of the emergency beacon pulsed steadily against the dark backdrop of space. Deep in the outer rim, the colony of Nova Prime was falling. Fires raged across the sprawling domes, their glass walls shattering under the relentless assault of plasma weapons. The settlers, scientists, engineers, families scrambled for cover, their voices a mix of panic and desperate hope. Commander Elara Hayes crouched behind the scorched remains of a supply container, her breath ragged, and eyes scanning the sky. They had known the dangers of this remote outpost, but nothing had prepared them for the sudden, brutal attack. No warning, no declaration, just fire and death. Send the distress signal, she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. Her calm officer, a young technician named Rin, nodded and tapped furiously at the console. The colony's last hope was a message, a plea for help, a record of what had happened. This is Nova Prime, under attack. The transmission began, looping endlessly now. Its voice calm, but edged with fear. Unknown hostile forces have breached perimeter defenses. Civilians are being evacuated. Request immediate aid. We do not know the enemy's origin or intentions. We are falling. This is not a drill. The message crackled through the void, traveling light years back to Earth and the other colonies. Somewhere out there, someone would hear it. Elara wiped soot from her face. Watching as a missile streaked toward the central dome, she closed her eyes for a brief moment. A silent prayer for those still alive inside. Far away, in the heart of the Interstellar Coalition, the Council convened in its grand chamber. A vast room suspended in zero gravity, where representatives of dozens of alien species gathered. Hushed voices echoed as holographic images of the colony's destruction flickered above the center platform. The counselor from the Zalinari, a towering figure with shimmering scales, shifted uneasily. A tragedy, yes, but this sector is volatile. Nova Prime's location places it dangerously close to the border with the Vorath. They could be responsible. The human ambassador, Ambassador Lin, clenched his fists but remained composed. This was a human colony. Our people, they deserve protection under the Coalition's laws. Counselor Vec, a thin, serpentine alien with cold eyes, responded smoothly. The Coalition cannot act on incomplete information. It is unwise to escalate conflicts without proof. Ambassador Lin's voice rose slightly. We have distress signals. We have evidence of the colony's destruction. This is more than collateral damage. A tense silence fell over the chamber. The counselors exchanged glances. Finally, the council leader, a neutral and ancient entity known only as the Arbiter, spoke in measured tones. We will investigate. Until then, no actions that risk war. Humanity must maintain the peace. Back on Earth, the broadcast played again on every screen, a grim reminder of loss and betrayal. Families who had never known the colony mourned. Strangers as if they were kin. Protesters gathered in city squares, holding candles and signs demanding justice. They burned our friends. We will not forget. In the shadows of government halls, Earth's military strategists and scientists met in secret. General Malik stood before a group of top minds, his gaze fierce. The Council's refusal to act is a clear message. Humanity is expendable. We cannot rely on others to protect us. Double quotes. Dr. Chen, the lead weapons engineer, nodded. We've been working on orbital defense platforms, advanced, precise, and powerful. If we can deploy them, Earth will have a way to respond decisively. Our plan was born not of aggression, but of survival and deterrence. They would show the Council that humanity would not be pushed aside. The era of meek submission was over. Meanwhile, on the edge of known space, the scattered survivors of Nova Prime struggled to regroup. Elara, battered but alive, led a ragged group through the wreckage. They had lost everything, homes, friends, families, but not their spirit. We must reach the nearest colony, she said. We'll tell them what happened here. Maybe they'll listen. Maybe we can still fight back. Her words carried weight far beyond the small band of survivors. They were the spark that would ignite a firestorm no one could ignore. As Earth's orbit began to hum with the silent preparation of weapons, hidden from the Council's watchful eyes, one truth echoed across the stars. They burned our friends, and Earth was ready to answer. The halls of Earth's United Defense Command were quieter than usual, but beneath the calm surface, a storm was gathering. The world had watched Nova Prime burn, watched as their friends were lost, and the Council turned a blind eye. Now, the leaders of Earth knew they had to act, but their moves had to be precise, calculated, and above all, secret. General Malik stood before a holographic display of the solar system, his fingers tracing the orbits of Earth's satellites. "We have the technology," he said, "but deploying it openly means war. A war we are not yet ready to fight." Around the table sat scientists, engineers, and strategists from the brightest minds Earth could gather. Dr. Chen, eyes bright with determination, leaned forward. "Our orbital weapons platform can launch controlled firestorms, high-energy plasma strikes that target enemy assets with surgical precision. Enough to cripple, not to destroy entire worlds." Malik nodded. "If we show the Council what we're capable of, they'll think twice before ignoring us again. We don't want a war, but we need to be ready if it comes." Outside the secured chambers, the world was restless. News reports replayed the footage of the colony's destruction, stirring anger and sorrow in every city and village. People across Earth took to the streets, holding vigils and demanding justice. The phrase "we will not be forgotten" became a quiet anthem whispered in homes and shouted in protest. Yet, despite the noise, the government maintained a veil of calm. Public statements urged patience and diplomacy. Behind the scenes, however, an entirely different narrative unfolded. Deep underground, massive construction bays buzzed with activity. Engineers worked around the clock, assembling sleek, heavily armed satellites designed to orbit Earth in silent vigilance. Each platform was a marvel of modern engineering, compact, efficient, and deadly. Lieutenant Mira Santos oversaw the testing phase. She moved swiftly from station to station, checking calibration data and running diagnostics. "These weapons are our shield and our sword," she told her team. "We build them to protect our people. If anyone tries to harm Earth or its colonies again, they'll learn what it means to face human fire." While Earth prepared, the Council remained oblivious, or perhaps dismissive. Their communications from the core worlds trickled in with the usual platitudes: negotiations, investigations, promises of peace. But Earth's leaders knew the truth. The Council's hesitation was a weakness, one they could no longer afford to tolerate. In the meantime, messages from the outer colonies reached Earth's secure servers. Survivors of Nova Prime and other human settlements told tales of growing fear, of alien patrols increasing their presence, and of whispered rumors that the Council was turning a blind eye to a wider threat. The Council's lack of action was not just indifference, it was a signal that humans were second-class citizens in the coalition. General Malik's voice cut through the room. "We cannot rely on diplomacy alone. We need to be prepared to answer fire with fire." On the public stage, Earth's leaders continued to plead for calm, but behind closed doors, a new doctrine was taking shape. It was called the Firestorm Protocol, a plan to unleash orbital strikes on strategic Council assets. If humanity or its colonies were threatened again, this was not a declaration of war, but a warning, a reminder that Earth had changed. The time for pleading was over. In a quiet moment, Dr. Chen stared out at the Earth's blue and green glow from the command center's observation deck. "They think we're weak," she said softly, "but firestorms are born in silence, and once ignited, they cannot be stopped." Meanwhile, the survivors of Nova Prime had reached the nearby colony of ES Station. Commander Elara Hayes briefed the station's leaders on the attack and the Council's refusal to intervene. The news spread quickly, stirring unease and determination among the colonies. At EOS, a young pilot named Yulin whispered to his comrades, "If Earth's ready to fight, maybe it's time we all stood up together." Back in orbit, the first of Earth's orbital weapons platforms quietly slipped into position, their sensors scanning the stars, waiting for a signal, a spark that would set the galaxy ablaze. The silent preparations were complete. The fire was ready to be unleashed. Darkness blanketed the Council's world of Virix as its inhabitants slept under the twin moons. Vast cities sprawled across continents, shimmering with advanced technology and the hum of daily life. No one expected the silent storm brewing high above their atmosphere. Far beyond, Earth's orbital weapons platforms moved into position. Hidden among the satellites and debris orbiting the planet, these sleek machines waited patiently, cloaked from detection by advanced stealth technology developed in secret. General Malik stood in the command center beneath Earth's surface, eyes locked on the tactical displays streaming data in real time. "This is it," he said quietly. "The moment we show the Council we're no longer defenseless." With a calm voice, he issued the order, "Initiate firestorm sequence." Across the command center, technicians began the countdown. The weapons platforms powered up their energy cores, channeling immense plasma charges into compact, focus beams designed to strike with pinpoint accuracy. Their targets, key council military depots and supply line strategic sites, whose destruction would send a clear message without unnecessary civilian casualties. On Virix, the first warning came as a sudden spike in orbital sensor readings. Technicians scrambled to confirm the source. Then, the sky ignited. Blazing streaks of plasma tore through the atmosphere, exploding in brilliant orange and blue firestorms that engulfed the military complexes below. Buildings crumbled under the intense heat, and storage tanks detonated. In spectacular chain reactions, panic swept through the cities. Air raid sirens wailed as emergency broadcasts urged civilians to take shelter. Council soldiers scrambled to mount a defense, but the strikes were over within minutes swift. Devastating and surgical. In Earth's command center, cheers erupted quietly but fiercely. First strike was a success, reported Lieutenant Mira Sandos, her eyes shining with pride. We hit every target without collateral damage. General Malik allowed himself a rare smile. This is more than just a strike, he said. It's a statement. We're here. We're ready. The council's leaders scrambled to respond. In their floating chambers, debates flared with urgency and alarm. The Zalinari councilor slammed his clawed fist on the table. This is an act of war. Humanity has crossed the line, but others urged caution. Councilor Vec hissed. Provoking Earth will only escalate the conflict. We must consider negotiation. The Arbiter, calm and inscrutable, silenced the room. We must understand Earth's message. They are no longer the passive member we believe them to be. Back on Earth, news of the firestorm spread instantly. Citizens across the globe watched the Council's world burn on their screens. There was jubilation, but also a sobering awareness. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had stepped into the spotlight. In the outer colonies, Commander Alara Hayes received the news with cautious hope. They heard us, she said to her small team. Earth answered the Council's silence with fire. The colonies, long neglected and vulnerable, began to believe that their fate was not sealed. Messages of solidarity poured in from human settlements and sympathetic alien races alike, rallying around Earth's defiant stand. However, the Council was far from defeated. They accelerated their military buildup and reinforced their outposts. Skirmishes along the borders increased in frequency and intensity. The galaxy seemed poised on the edge of a broader conflict, yet Earth's leaders remained resolute. General Malik addressed the world in a rare public broadcast. We did not choose war. We chose to protect our people. If the Council wants peace, they will respect our strength. If they choose otherwise, we will be ready in quiet quarters. Dr. Chen and her team continued refining the Firestorm technology, preparing for what might come next. This is just the beginning, she said. The Council will learn that when you burn our friends, Earth answers with orbital firestorms as night fell across Earth. The weapons platforms remained vigilant in orbit, silent guardians of humanity's resolve. The stars outside held the promise of conflict and change, but also hope that from the ashes, a new future might rise. The Council chamber on Virix buzzed with tension like never before. The images of burning Council depots replayed endlessly on holographic displays, a stark reminder that Earth had shattered the uneasy peace with overwhelming force. Councilors paced and debated, their voices a mix of disbelief, anger, and fear. The Zalinari councilor's scales bristled as he slammed a fist against the polished table. This defiance cannot stand. Earth has crossed the line. They must be punished. But the Serpentine councilor Vec held up a slender claw. We must be cautious. Earth's strike was devastating and precise. If we escalate too quickly, we risk war. The Arbiter, the ancient and enigmatic leader of the Council, floated above the gathered members, calm yet commanding. We face a new reality. Earth has shown it will no longer be ignored. Our old ways will not hold. From the back of the chamber, a younger counselor representing a lesser-known species, the Ilari, spoke hesitantly. Perhaps we should consider a new approach, open dialogue with Earth. Their power is undeniable, but the old guard resisted. The Council had ruled the coalition for centuries with careful diplomacy and control. To be challenged so openly by a single species was unthinkable. Outside the chamber, the news of Earth's strike spread rapidly through the coalition worlds. Citizens and soldiers alike whispered of Earth's unexpected power and questioned the Council's ability to contain this new threat. Meanwhile, Earth was far from complacent. General Malik and his team watched the Council's reaction closely, ready to respond to any move. The orbital platforms remain on high alert, their weapons, systems fully operational. Back on the frontier colonies, the mood shifted. Where fear had once dominated, now there was a spark of hope. Commander Elara Hayes stood before a gathering of colony leaders on ES Station. Earth has sent a message. We are not alone, she said firmly. The Council's silence is over. The colonies began to share intelligence and resources, slowly building an alliance united by the will to survive and resist oppression. However, the Council was not without resources. They quickly mobilized their fleets and began reinforcing strategic positions. Near human-controlled space, warships moved into orbit around key colonies, their weapons systems primed. In a secret meeting aboard the Council's flagship, the Admiral of the fleet addressed his officers. Earth has upset the balance. We will show them the cost of rebellion. Yet even among the fleet, doubt surfaced. Some captains questioned the wisdom of provoking Earth further. They are stronger than we thought, one officer murmured. If we push too hard, we risk losing everything on Earth. Political leaders prepared for the inevitable. The once hidden Firestorm Protocol was now public knowledge, a declaration of humanity's readiness to defend itself at all costs. General Malik addressed a gathering of diplomats. We do not seek war, but we will not back down. Our actions are a warning. Respect Earth's sovereignty or face the consequences. At the same time, scientists worked to improve the orbital platforms. Dr. Chen introduced new upgrades that increased the Firestorm's range and precision, preparing for possible counterattacks. In the quieter moments, Mira Santos reflected on the rapid changes. We went from being ignored to feared, she said softly. It's a heavy burden, but one we must carry. As tensions mounted, both sides braced for what might come next. The Council scrambled to maintain control over a coalition now threatened by rising human power. Earth and its allies stood ready. United by loss and the fire of determination, the galaxy held its breath. The darkness of space seemed to hold a secret as small fleets and lone ships moved through hidden corridors between star systems. The coalition's vast expanse was fracturing, and alliances were forming in shadow. Commander Elara Hayes sat in the dimly lit briefing room of ES Station, surrounded by representatives from scattered human colonies and a handful of alien races, disillusioned with the Council's inaction. Faces from worlds as different as the Iridani with their shimmering skin, to the stout, armored Krelther, stared at the holomap glowing in the center of the table. We cannot fight the Council alone, Elara said, her voice steady but urgent. Their fleets are massive, their reach extensive, but together, we stand a chance. Tarn, the Iridani envoy, nodded thoughtfully. The Council's grip is weakening. Many among my people quietly oppose their rule, but fear keeps us silent. Krelther, Captain Rock grunted. My forces are limited, but our knowledge of the Council's patrol routes might help. Elara pointed to a cluster of systems along the frontier. These are vital supply lines. If we disrupt them, the Council's power weakens. We'll strike from unexpected angles. The room hummed with cautious optimism. Plans began to take shape, relying on stealth, speed, and surprise, the antithesis of the Council's overwhelming force. Meanwhile, Earth's orbital platforms continued their silent vigil, but now, the fight was not just about technology. It was about trust, and the fragile bonds of alliance forming in the shadows. On the outer rim, hidden bases and covert outposts buzzed with activity. Spies exchanged intelligence, smugglers ferried supplies, and sabotage teams prepared to hit key Council targets. Elara oversaw the coordination, linking communications between human colonies and alien allies. Each successful strike, each piece of intelligence gathered, built momentum, yet danger was never far. Council patrols increased, scanning for signs of rebellion. Several teams narrowly escaped capture, their ships weaving through asteroid fields and nebulae to evade detection. One such escape was led by Mira Santos, the lieutenant who had helped launch Earth's first firestorm. Her small fleet had just completed a successful raid on a Council-supplied convoy. We hit their transport docks hard, Mira reported via encrypted comm. Supply lines disrupted and enemy morale shaken. Elara smiled grimly. Good work. Every victory counts. Despite the victories, the cost was high. Colonies under Council control faced harsher crackdowns, and innocent lives were caught in the crossfire. The Alliance knew the path ahead was perilous. Back on Earth, political leaders balanced public support with the realities of war. Diplomatic channels remained open but strained. Ambassador Lin continued to plead for recognition and respect from the wider coalition, his voice carrying the weight of a people fighting for survival. In private, however, Earth's leaders prepared for all outcomes. Dr. Chen and her team worked tirelessly to upgrade the Firestorm systems, incorporating lessons from recent engagements. We're improving targeting algorithms, she explained to General Malik. Faster strikes, less chance of collateral damage. Malik nodded. Precision is key. We must keep the moral high ground while showing strength. Across the stars, the Council struggled to maintain order. Divisions grew between those advocating for harsh reprisals and those fearing the collapse of the coalition itself. The Arbiter's voice echoed at secret meetings. We face a choice: escalate into war or seek a new balance. But humanity's firestorm has changed the game. As the Alliance expanded, hope blossomed where once there was fear. The colonies and their alien allies were no longer isolated. They were a growing force, united not by the Council, but by a shared desire for freedom. In the quiet moments, Alara gazed at the stars through the observation deck of Ya's station. We fight in the dark now, she said softly to her closest officers, but the dawn is coming. We just have to hold on. The fire had been lit not just by Earth's orbital weapons, but by the bonds forged in shadow. And as the galaxy braced for what lay ahead, one truth was clear: the Council's reign was no longer unchallenged. In the deep shadows of the Coalition's outer reaches, rebellion was no longer a whisper, it was a growing storm. Small groups of dissidents, once isolated and fearful, now moved with purpose and coordination. The firestorm had ignited more than just weapons in orbit. It had sparked a flame of resistance in the hearts of many. Commander Alara Hayes stood before a crowded hall on Ya's station, her gaze sweeping over the mix of humans and aliens gathered. We are no longer victims, she declared. We are the architects of our own future. The Council's control is slipping, and with every strike, every alliance we forge, we take back our freedom. Her words were met with nods and murmurs of agreement. Among the crowd were members of the Iridani and Krelther, but also representatives from smaller species who had long suffered under the Council's iron rule. Across the Coalition, rumors of uprisings in distant star systems grew louder. Ships bearing the colors of the rebellion appeared suddenly in key trade routes, disrupted supplies and communications. The Council's grip, once tight and unyielding, was now fraying. But the Council was far from defeated. In their grand halls on Virix, leaders debated fiercely over how to respond. The warships in orbit of rebellious colonies had orders to crush any resistance swiftly and decisively. Admiral Vesh, commander of the Council's fleet, paced before his officers. These rebels believe Earth's firestorm marks a turning point. We will show them the true might of the Coalition. Yet beneath his confident words, doubt nodded some. Several captains warned that prolonged conflict might empower the rebels further. If we destroy too much, we risk alienating neutral worlds. One officer cautioned. Back on Earth, the mood was a mix of determination and cautious hope. General Malik convened his senior officers. The rebellion is spreading faster than we expected. We need to support our allies without provoking full-scale war. Dr. Chen presented a new prototype, an upgraded orbital platform with enhanced stealth capabilities and faster plasma recharge. This will allow us to strike with greater precision and avoid detection. Lieutenant Mirasanos reviewed recent combat reports. Our raids are hitting their targets, but Council patrols are adapting. We must stay one step ahead. Meanwhile, the Alliance's covert operations intensified. Saboteurs infiltrated Council supply chains, while diplomats worked to sway undecided species to their cause. Trust was fragile, but growing in the midst of this turmoil. Alara received troubling news. One of the smaller allied colonies, Reese Prime, had fallen to a brutal Council assault. The colony's leaders had been captured, and many civilians were lost. Alara's hands clenched into fists. We must respond, she said grimly. If we let them suffer alone, the rebellion will falter. Earth prepared to send reinforcements and supplies to Reese Prime survivors. The Firestorm protocol was on standby, ready to unleash if the Council's forces overstepped. In a hidden chamber on Virix, the Arbiter addressed the Council privately. We must consider peace talks. The rebellion is fueled by fear and neglect. If we do not change course, the Coalition will fracture beyond repair. But old rivalries and pride ran deep. Many counselors saw peace as weakness. As the galaxy teetered on the brink, one truth remained: the fires of rebellion would not be easily extinguished. Earth and its allies had shifted the balance, but the struggle for freedom was only beginning. Alara stood once more before her growing coalition, her voice steady and fierce. We fight not just for survival, but for a future where all species can live free. The shadows of rebellion have grown into a beacon of hope. We will not back down. The Council's ancient halls, once a symbol of unity and power, now echoed with whispers of doubt and discord. The fires Earth had ignited in the outer colonies had burned far deeper than anyone expected. They had fractured the Council itself. Counselors, who had long stood firm in their loyalty to the old order, now found themselves at odds with one another. The Arbiter, once a voice of calm and reason, struggled to maintain control over a coalition unraveling at the seams. In the Grand Chamber on Virix, the debate was fierce and unrelenting. Counselor Vec, the serpent-like diplomat, addressed the assembly with quiet urgency. We face a crisis unlike any before. Earth's actions have shattered our dominance, and rebellion grows. We must consider negotiation before all is lost. The Zalinari counselor snarled in response. Negotiation is a sign of weakness. We must crush these insurgents and remind the galaxy who holds power. Others remained silent, watching as the chasm widened. Some feared the consequences of escalating the war, while others clung to pride and vengeance. Outside the chamber, whispers of dissent grew louder. Several member species, tired of the Council's heavy hand and slow response, began openly questioning their allegiance. Secret meetings convened in the shadows, where plans for independence and alliance with Earth were quietly discussed. On Earth, news of the Council's fracture spread quickly. General Malik watched reports with a measured gaze. Their disunity is our advantage, he said. We must press carefully, but firmly. Commander Alara has received messages from several colonies declaring their intent to break from the Council's control. This is the turning point, she told her commanders. The Coalition's unity is breaking. Meanwhile, the Council's fleet found itself stretched thin. Skirmishes erupted on multiple fronts as rebel forces, human and alien-alike, attacked supply convoys, communication relays, and military outposts. Lieutenant Mirasanos led a daring raid against a heavily fortified Council base orbiting the industrial planet Thorax. The base's destruction will disrupt their ability to resupply, she reported afterward. It's a blow to their logistics. Back on Earth, Dr. Chen and her team refined the Firestorm technology, enhancing its precision and reducing its energy consumption. We're preparing for the possibility of a decisive strike, she said, but we hope it won't come to that. Despite the growing chaos, a faction within the Council pushed for peace, led by Counselor Alara, a thoughtful representative of the peaceful Novelari. These moderates sought dialogue with Earth and the rebels. The cycle of violence must end, she pleaded in private meetings. General Malik sent a confidential message to Alara through trusted channels. If the Council is willing to talk in good faith, Earth is ready. Yet not all voices were heard or heeded. The hardliners hardened their stance, preparing fleets for a final, overwhelming show of force. In the colonies, the sense of hope and fear coexisted. Alara and her allies worked to solidify their fragile coalition, knowing the coming days could decide the fate of many worlds. One evening, Alara stood beneath the stars, on ES Station's observation deck, her eyes fixed on the distant glow of Virix. The Council's grip loosens, she murmured, but the true test is still ahead. The galaxy was on the edge, the Council fracturing, rebellion rising, and Earth's firestorms poised to light the way forward. The next move could reshape everything. The tension was palpable in Earth's command center as the moment approached. Months of preparation, delicate diplomacy, and relentless covert operations had led to this critical juncture. The Council was fractured, the rebellion spread like wildfire, but the galaxy's fate still hung in the balance. General Malik stood before the glowing tactical displays, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. Around him, the room buzzed with focused energy, technicians, strategists, and officers waiting for the signal. This is it, Malik said quietly. The Council has refused every offer for peace. They continue to attack our colonies and allies. Today, Earth will remind them why they must never underestimate us again. The orbital weapons platforms hung to life, their plasma cores charging with a steady, lethal glow. Each platform was linked to a network targeting system, capable of unleashing coordinated strikes that could cripple entire fleets or installations in seconds. Commander Alara Hayes, standing on EOS Station, coordinated with Earth's command, Her voice was steady over the comm. Targets confirmed, fleet command hubs, supply depots, and key communication relays. We hit fast, we hit hard, and we hit precise. As the countdown neared zero, the Council's forces scrambled to mount a defense. Fleet commanders barked orders, deploying interceptors and activating shields. The skies above Virix filled with warships, their engines glowing ominously. Then, with a blinding flash, the first firestorm struck. Plasma beams tore through the void, slicing through Council cruisers and shattering orbital defenses. Explosions rippled across the enemy formations as well-placed strikes disabled power cores and weapons arrays. Council officers watched in stunned silence as their forces crumbled with unprecedented speed and precision. Admiral Vesh cursed under his breath. Earth's firestorms, they're unlike anything we faced. On the ground, the people of Virix and other Council worlds looked up as the sky erupted in waves of brilliant fire. The destruction was terrifying, but controlled, aimed to dismantle military power without unnecessary harm to civilians. Meanwhile, rebel forces launched coordinated attacks from within, seizing control of strategic locations as Council resistance faltered. The balance of power shifted rapidly. General Malik allowed himself a brief smile. This is what strength looks like. As the firestorms continued their relentless assault, communications from the Council's moderate faction increased. Counselor Alara's voice came through secure channels. We seek an immediate ceasefire. Let us end this conflict before it consumes us all. Malik nodded to his officers, prepared to respond, but only after the firestorms cease. In a tense meeting aboard the Arbiter's flagship, the fractured Council debated their next move. The devastation was undeniable, and many feared the total collapse of their coalition. The Arbiter's voice rang out. Earth has changed the rules. We must find a new way forward, or risk annihilation. Days later, a historic broadcast echoed through the galaxy. Counselor Alara and Ambassador Lin stood side by side, announcing a tentative peace agreement, brokered with Earth's leadership. The coalition would dissolve in its old form, replaced by a new alliance built on mutual respect and cooperation. Colonies would gain autonomy and Earth's sovereignty recognized. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted. The firestorms had been more than weapons. They were a message, a turning point. Humanity had stepped from the shadows and taken its place. Among the stars, Commander Alara Hay stood quietly, gazing at the night sky. We fought for our friends, for our future, and now we build something new. The galaxy was forever changed, not by domination or fear, but by the fire of resolve and the hope of unity.